I currently have a pretty average number of physical TBR books, but that doesn't mean some of these books haven't been on the shelf longer than necessary. My mission, now that I have accepted it, is to eliminate the books on this shelf one by one until this shelf is completely Yes?
I know you're about to say something really ambitious, but could you aim for a little less delusion for my sake, please?
I swear, readers these days. We're gonna eliminate the books on the shelf until it is half empty. That's 3 shelves, stop counting. At the beginning of each month's episode, I will use a random number generator to select the book that will be read. The hope is that the first book I pick will be the one to start off that episode. However, I will be allowing myself 2 chances to maneuver around the shelf in the hopes of finding that first book to read. I'm so excited, yeah, that's convincing enough, to get some of these physical books cleared off of this TBR shelf, so get ready to read or reap.
As of right now, I am up to 123 books. I added some after the end of episode 2, which I will link down in the description. I will link both of them down in the description if you want to go check out the Read or Reap series and see just how well I'm doing at clearing off this shelf. Spoiler alert, it's slow going. But let me ask Alexa to pick me a number between 1 and 123, and we will see which physical book I will be starting off episode 3 of Read or Reap with. Alexa, can you pick me a number between 1 and 123? $96. Okay, let me figure out what book 96 is. Book number 96 ended up being Raising the Horseman, which is a book that I picked up when I was in Sleepy Hollow. I think this is a young adult Sleepy Hollow story, I guess. It's fairly short, so I'm hoping that I can finish this one without DNFing it, because the prompt on this one said, read this book.
I'm about a third of the way through this book, and I hate everything about this. But I don't want to DNF it because the last 2 episodes, I DNF'd the first book that I read. So I really don't want to DNF this, but I am not enjoying this. This is a young adult story about Katrina, or Kat, as I should say. Her name is Katrina, but she goes by Kat. Kat Von Tassel. She is the great something granddaughter of the original Katrina Von Tassel from, the original Sleepy Hollow or whatnot. And her parents just assume, and they are pressuring her to marry her high school boyfriend. What is his name? It starts with a B because, Brom. His name is Blake. Because, she has to continue on the Von Tassel lineage, legacy, or whatnot. And, the only way she can do that is to marry Blake Brom for some god knows unknown reason. I don't fucking understand it. Like, she wants to go to college in New York City because she's never been out of Sleepy Hollow, like, ever. How? I don't know, because this is a modern time. They have cars, they have trains. Like, girl, you can't hop on a train, you can't, like, none of your friends have cars. You've never ventured outside of the little town of Sleepy Hollow. That's some sad shit right there. But she hasn't. But that's all she wants to do, is she wants to go to college in New York City. But her parents are like, oh, no. No, you need to settle down and marry Blake. She's 18, mind you. She's like a senior in high school. And she doesn't really like Blake, even though they grew up together and everybody just assumed they would get married or whatnot. He's starting to really aggravate her. You can tell he's an asshole of a kid. You can tell he's a douchebag teenager. He and his friends, who are known as the Sleepy Hollow Boys, mind you, are, like, having a party in the cemetery, trashing her ancestor's grave or whatnot, and they want to, like, summon her ancestor from the dead. And there she meets, are you ready for this? Isadora Crow. Not Ichabod Crane, but Isadora Crow. Yeah. And I have a feeling that it's going to be their romance because, she's reading this diary of the original Katrina, and Katrina's falling for Ichabod. And so why wouldn't Kat fall for Isadora? It's just so cliche. It's just so cringy. The writing in here is also not good. It feels like somebody gave a 13-year-old a prompt of, I want you to write the story of Sleepy Hollow, just mix up the characters' names and genders and have it mirror the original story. And this is what came out of it. So I'm going to force myself to finish this book, because I don't want to DNF another first book in this Read or Reap series. But good God, don't expect a high rating from this, because this is some bad stuff. Okay, I did it. I finished reading this god-awful book. This is getting 1.5 stars for me. One of the things I hated about it was, well, lots of things I hated about it, but one of them was that modern day Kat and historical Katrina, their stories are exactly the same, just with names, interchanged, and instead of Ichabod Crane, we have Isadora Crow. So we have like a gender swap there. Other than that, the stories are the exact fucking same. We have characters who don't want to be stuck in the small town of Sleepy Hollow. They have bigger ambitions. They don't want to get married to the person their parents want them to marry or whatnot. And that's it. This writing is awful. It's atrocious. The female main character is 18. This feels like it was written for a 10-year-old. The way the characters talk to one another is so stilted. So it'll be like, how is your day, Kat Von Tassel? It's going good. How about yours, Isadora Crow? Like, who the fuck talks like that? Nobody talks like that. Especially once you have known somebody. Like, why was that necessary? It's also very repetitive writing. Like, in here, Blake will be like, I can't tell you that. And so then Kat will be like, he's not going to tell me that. He just said that. As a reader, I do not need to be reiterated upon that. The backstories just didn't make sense at all either. Like, why in this modern day are these parents so focused on her marrying her high school boyfriend and like carrying on the legacy of Katrina? She could do that from anywhere. She can go to college and still, go on with that legacy. But this book also doesn't do a very good job of like separating the two voices. Like, historic Katrina and modern day Kat, they sound exactly the same. Couldn't tell them apart if they weren't separated by like, this is Katrina's diary entry and all that. It was just very, very bad. And if you think I'm kidding, when I went to write my review for this, I looked at like what the average rating for this book on Storygraph was. 3.2. That tells you that I am not the only one that thinks this book was heinous. I feel like this could appeal to maybe like 10, 11-year-olds if the curse words were taken out of it and the characters were aged down to be like 13 or 14. I don't know who this would appeal to, because the characters are 18, 19, there's swear words in here, but yet the writing is so bad. So I don't know. I'm disappointed that I wasted my fucking money on this. And what disappoints me even more is I was torn between this book and a different book when I was purchasing this at Transom Bookstore in Tarrytown, actually. And I asked the guy at the bookstore, like, which one do you think I should get? And I distinctly remember him saying, oh, you should get this one. It's really good. Sir, if you are watching this video, I doubt you are, but if you are, by some God forbidden chance, you come across this video, I hope you get explosive diarrhea and the urge to sneeze all at the same time. Like, I hope every book that you read has the integral chapters missing from it. Because what the fuck would you tell me that this is a great book for? With a 3.2 average rating? Come on now. Come on. So needless to say, this POS is going to be reaped from my collection. I do not recommend it at all. Oh, the only things, like, I'm giving it a 1.5 star because I liked the setting of Sleepy Hollow. It mentioned like Sleepy Hollow Road and the cemetery, and I've been to those places, so I could easily visualize the setup in my mind. I also think what they did with the Headless Horseman, like how that played out in the end, was a really interesting twist that I haven't read before, and I think if it was put into any other book, it would have been better. But those were the only two positives I could give you for this stupid thing. But I read it. I did not DNF it. We are not starting this episode of Reader Reap with a DNF, even though I should have. So now I am up to 122 books on my shelf. Let me get my random number generator out and we will pick the next book to read. Okay, we got 1 to 122. 60. Let me figure out what book 60 is. 58, 59, 60. And that one says, read the book below, so I have to pick the book directly below it. So that was the third book on the shelf. This one says, read this book. And it is a love song for Ricky Wilde, so this is what I'll be reading next. I am now 20% into a love song for Ricky Wilde. I started physically reading it, and then I was having like a really hard time getting into it because it feels more lit fic than romance. For some reason I had it in my mind that this was a romance because of the title. It says a love song. So from what I can surmise so far, we are following Ricky, who comes from a family of, they own a funeral home or a funeral business or something. They're very profitable in the death community. They make a lot of money off of death, which, I mean, hey, it's a business that's never going to go out of style, I'll tell you that. But she doesn't want to take over her family's business. She has other plans. She's the family member who is kind of the black sheep, sort of say. She just doesn't fit in. So she comes up with an idea to open up her own flower shop. That's a very common theme in books for some reason. Why do so many people want to open up flower shops? Like, I get it, flowers are beautiful, but are they that profitable? I don't know. Anyway, girl wants to open up a flower shop. But she has very limited funds to do it, but she manages to do it. She opens it in like this area in Harlem, and she's out one night and she sees this man. We have no idea who this man is. But he's dressed really nicely, and she's like smelling flowers that aren't supposed to be in bloom at this time or whatnot. And I'm assuming that this is going to be her love interest. And I knew this had magical realism in it. So when it gets to like his point of view, it's set in like the early 1900s, like 1920, I think. Can't remember what era. It's early 1900s anyway. And he is a musician, I think. I'm not quite sure. I've only read like 2 chapters of his point of view so far. But I guess this is gonna be like a time travel romance, maybe? I don't know. Really haven't gotten into the romance yet at 20%, which is kind of what's dragging me down because I want the romance. I want a romance, and this is just more lit fic, and we're pretty much just watching her as she's like starting her business and finding a more accepting family around her. I'm gonna continue reading. Hopefully we get to some sort of romance soon. Because I need there to be some sort of romance in this book that I thought was a romance. I'm really sad that I'm not like absolutely loving it. Maybe I will once the romance kicks in, because Lisa was so nice to buy me this book when I met her at a Polycon last year.
such a sweetheart. And it's one of her, I think it was one of her favorite books of last year as well. So I want to love it as much as she loves it. But I need some romance, y'all. I really do. So that's where I'm at. I am making hamburgers for dinner. Yay. So here, let me give you some B-roll of that. I am cleaning bathrooms today. So I just finished listening to A Love Story for Ricky Wilde. And I'm happy to say that this turned around for me. About 50% into it, it finally reached a point where it started to feel like a romance to me, which is one of my drawbacks to it, is that for like the first 50% of this book, it felt very lit-fic. But once the romance kicked in, I think the story started to feel much more like a romance. We find out that Ezra is actually cursed, and he has pretty much been an immortal since 1920s. And he has a connection to Ricky. They are essentially soulmates. I really liked his character. I got really invested in his story. And anytime they were together, like in a romantic sense, or he was talking about his past, I really keyed into that. Ricky's character, on the other hand, I didn't feel a strong connection to. Aside from her love of like flowers and her personality of like going against the grain and doing what she loves, I really didn't think there was like much else to her personality wise. I liked her friend, however. One of my things that I liked about this book were the side characters. I really liked Tuesday. She made me laugh. I liked her personality. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I got the sense that she has a story somewhere. Is she like the main character of this author's other book, something Days of June, maybe? Is that what I'm thinking of? Is she the main character in that book? Because I might want to read that book now. But I really liked her story, and I also liked Miss Delia, was that her name? She was an older woman that sort of became Ricky's grandmother, her chosen grandmother. I really liked their relationship. I liked her story overall, and she was an older woman who was approaching death and how she went about that. I liked how she went about her life, basically. She lived it to its fullest, and she got what she wanted out of it, and it was a very poignant character for me. I think I connected stronger with her than I did the main character, which is ridiculous because she's like an old ass woman. When I read, I become a character, right? It's usually the main character who I insert myself into. That sounds sexual. It's usually the main character who I become. So you would think that I would become Ricky in this sense, and I wasn't. I was the older woman, Miss Delia. I saw myself in her more. I liked the audio narration of this book. It is dual cast, and I thought both of the narrators did a really good job of bringing these characters to life. This story also took like a paranormal twist. As I said, Ezra is cursed, and we don't really learn that until, God, like 60-70% into the book. And how that happened, I was just like, oh, this is going paranormal. I did not expect that. So I would say this book is a mashup of a bunch of different genres. It's like contemporary romance with a little dose of historical in there. It's got a little bit of magical realism. It's got a little bit of paranormal. And I think that meshed well into one story. This book didn't make me cry or anything. I didn't get like really emotional reading it, but the latter half of this book is what I enjoyed most. I'm going to end up giving this book 4 stars, which I'm happy about. I'm happy that this went from a book that I was like, am I gonna make it through this, to a book that was 4 stars. So I'm happy to say that this was a success. So Lisa, if you're watching this, thank you so much for purchasing this book for me. I do plan on keeping it. I'm sad that I didn't absolutely love it like you absolutely loved it, but I am glad that overall I enjoyed it.
I need to clean out my little storage container here and reorganize this stuff. It's what I do every time I clean my bathroom. So let me organize it. This is the before. I need to make sure my box of toiletries. It used to say Becky's box of tools, but the tools came off. I use it to put like hotel toiletries in because that's what I use. My family, anytime they like go to a hotel or something, they just save me hotel toiletries and then they give it to me for Christmas because I'm a cheap bitch and I haven't bought like shampoo, conditioner, or body wash in like 5 years. So yeah, I just need to make sure it's all full still. These are my shampoos. I just restocked it recently, so I haven't taken a lot out of here. These are all like conditioners over here. This is all soaps and body wash. And then down here is lotions and some more body wash. So, okay, I'm back in front of my bookshelves. We have 120 books now on this shelf. I picked one off at random to read that I will talk about probably in a wrap-up. Not during this video, but 120 books. So let me ask Alexa to pick me a number between 1 and 120 and see what my next book is going to be. Alexa, can you pick me a number between 1 and 120? She chose 59, so let me figure out what 59 is. 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58... 59. This says read this book, and it is The First Bright Thing. Okay, so I've made progress in The First Bright Thing. This is a historical fiction. I've made it right there. I am on chapter 11. No, yeah, 11, which is page 74. Good God, I feel like I've been reading this book much longer than that. Anyhoozle. This is about this circus called Circus Fantasticals, and it is comprised of a bunch of people who have these abilities called sparks. It gives them a bunch of different abilities. Our main character, Rin, she can travel through time. She has a wife who is a trapeze artist that can heal people. And other of the performers are just outcasts that she's created this home for. But we find out that Rin was once in a relationship with this man named Edward. And Edward had this ability. They didn't know what it was at first, but he has a spark himself. And they keep mentioning this man named the Circus King, I think is what they call him as. Yeah, he's the Circus King. We don't know who the Circus King is, but he is this, like, bad guy. I suspect that Edward is the Circus King because he has a spark, but we really don't know what it is. He doesn't know what it is yet in his timeline because this book goes back and forth through the past into the future to the present, blah, blah, blah. And so I have a feeling that the bad guy is Edward. I kind of want to DNF this book. For one, I thought I was a hell of a lot further along than 74 pages. For another thing, I feel like this book would be great if it were a cozy fantasy. Because this circus is comprised of people who don't fit in, they're outcasts, and Rin is giving them a place to, you know, belong and found family and all that. And this circus is all about, like, bringing joy to people, and everyone's a winner, and everyone's special, and everyone's happy when they're there. I mean, their midway games, their carnival games, are so... they're just so... everybody's a winner. Like, she just mentioned that one of the games where you, like, hit the bell, the strongman bell or whatever, every time Like, if people do it 3 times in a row, they will win. It's rigged that way, that everybody will win if they just give it 3 tries. Like, what's the point of that? That's no fun. Like, if everybody's a winner, I guess maybe the people coming to the carnival don't know that everybody's a winner, and so it's like, it makes them feel happy that they won shit. So, you see what I mean when I say I feel like this would be better as a cozy fantasy? Like, you put some freaking dragons in here and shit like that, and I feel like this would make a great cozy fantasy where everything's hunky-dory, happy, rainbows and butterflies. But this is not a cozy fantasy. This actually has some darker elements to it, in the fact that Rin was in this, like, abusive relationship with Edward. And what I find super ridiculous so far is that they go forward in time. Rin transports, like, her wife and this other circus performer into the future to World War II. Okay? Because this book takes place after World War I. And so they see what's going to happen at World War II. And so they go back in time and they're like, we have to stop this. We all know that's not going to happen. These characters, I'm sure, they don't know that they're not going to be able to stop it. But I, as a reader, know that they're not going to be able to stop it. So this happy, cheery, everybody's friendly, everybody wins circus trying to stop World War II. The two just don't match up in my mind. And that's where I'm at, like, a disconnect with this story. I'm not super connected to any of the characters in here. Don't be surprised if the next update I give you is I DNF this book, okay? That's what I'm saying.
You won't be surprised when I tell you I'm DNFing the first bright thing. So I did read a few more chapters. I stopped at chapter 17, which is page 108. So I gave this book 100 pages. This just wasn't that interesting. I still maintain that if this was a cozy fantasy, like set in a fantasy world with this circus, it would have been a much more compelling story with these characters. And that's that. I'm gonna reap this from my collection. And with that, I am not down in front of my TBR shelf because my sister is downstairs watching TV and it's a little loud down there. So I did count, and we are up to, I think, 119. So I am going to randomize a number between 1 and 119 to see what my next book pick will be. 35. Okay. Let me go see what book 35 is. Oh, 35 was lucky. It said read this book, and that is A Broken Blade by Melissa Blair. So I don't really know much about this. I have heard that it's fantasy romance. I've also heard that it's more just fantasy. So I have no idea. So this will be the next book that I give a try. I had thought about giving you an update when I made progress in A Broken Blade, but I've already finished this book. But hey, I finished it. I didn't DNF it. So this is a fantasy romance in which this world is run by this evil king who has decreed that, like, elves or fae, I don't know, he set it up so, like, halflings shouldn't exist, which is why it's called the Halfling Saga. And anybody who is supposedly a halfling has to, like, enter these tournaments to become what he calls a shade, to be in his, like, army, I guess, or whatnot. And so a lot of halfling people end up dying. And our main girl, Kira here, she is his assassin. She's supposed to be his best assassin, and she will go out and she will kill anybody that the king deems needs killed. When this mysterious stranger enters the kingdom known as the Shadow, the king sends her after this mysterious stranger to bring him this Shadow's head. So she ends up traveling to the Dark Fae realm, where she realizes that, hey, kingdoms can treat their people good. And she ends up meeting the Shadow, and it is a bit of a romance between her and the Shadow. I'm being very vague about this. I'm not going to be vague when I get into telling you my thoughts on it, so I don't know why I'm being vague right now. I think this would be a great story if you're just getting into the fantasy romance genre, because there isn't anything too expansive with the world. There isn't anything too intricate with the magic system or anything like that. And the plot is pretty damn generic. This is a trope-heavy book. Like, if you can think of a trope that you've seen in fantasy romance, it is in this book, let me tell you. Some things that I liked about this cover, first of all, a very stunning cover. It's got a little bit of a shimmer to it. It's got the leaves on it. It's a very beautiful cover. There was a twist at the end that I did not see coming that kind of surprised me, and so I appreciated that. There's also this element within the story where the shadow, I'm not sure if it's just him or if it's other like fae as well, but he can communicate through plants. Like, he can tell where people are through like touching a plant, and plants will like tell him certain things. I thought that was a really cool element. Unfortunately, it was not expanded upon within this story. It was just like a brief mention of the power that he has. That's where my enjoyment ended. So I did listen to the audiobook of this, and while the audio narration kept me listening, like, I was never bored listening to this story. I just wasn't like absorbed within the story. Usually when I read a story or I listen to a story, I become the main character of the story. However, when I'm not absorbed within the story, I'm just pretty much watching it play out like a movie. I am not in the story, I'm just watching it, and that's what this was. The love interests in here, okay, let me tell you, he's Rhysand. That's what he is. He's a shadow daddy. He does have fangs though, so I will give him that. He's got fangs. He's got violet eyes, and that is something that you will not forget within the story, because the author does not let you forget his violet fucking eyes, okay? It's reiterated so damn much. I was like, I get it. He's got fucking violet eyes. Like, can we move past this one thing, okay? He's also very tall. He's got a lot of other powers to him as well. You know, he's all about the consent with her, and he treats her well, and blah, blah, blah. I also didn't really like the female main character for the first half of this book, okay? Because she is an alcoholic. And I understand that she has gone through a lot of PTSD and a lot of trauma, because she's been forced to kill a lot of people. And she writes, or she carves their name into her skin. So her skin is completely scarred with all the names of the innocent people she's had to kill. So I can see why she would turn to alcohol to be a coping mechanism for her. But she's seen as the best spy that this kingdom has, and she is not even a functioning alcoholic, okay? This girl is throwing up all the time. She's always got headaches, and she's like, she even mentions in here how she's lost so much muscle because of her dependence on alcohol. And I'm like, and this is the best assassin this kingdom has? She can't even function in her alcoholism. So how is she the best that they have? It made no fucking sense to me. Now, toward the I want to say like maybe a little bit past the halfway mark, her character does develop in that she recognizes that this alcoholism exists and why she depends on it and things like that. And she slowly starts to lose her dependency on it. So she did have good character growth. But for the life of me, I was just like, really? This is your great assassin right here? The girl who is passed out, who has no muscle mass, and who's constantly throwing up with headaches. She's it? Sure. This also tried to add some like bisexual rep in it that was the laziest form of representation imaginable. It's a dead lover. Other than that, that's the only rep that's in this book. And for the life of me, because I knew on Storygraph it had the LGBT plus label on it, right? And so I knew that there was going to be some sort of rep in here. But I was just like, are we going to see the representation? Is the representation in the room with us? So I wanted to give this book 3 stars. I felt like it was a pretty decent story if you haven't read other fantasy romances. But when I sat down to write up my review of the things I liked and disliked about it, the dislike heavily outweighed the like. And so I'm like, I really can't give this more than a 2.5 star rating. But I finished it, I read it, I got it off my shelf. This will be a reap though, and I don't see myself continuing on with the series, unfortunately. So with that, there are now 118 books on the shelf, so let me ask Alexa to pick me a new book. Alexa, can you pick me a number between 1 and 118? 108. Okay, let me figure out what book 108 is. Hey, this works out great. Book 108 is Whispers of the Deep by Anna Maham, and the prompt says, read this book. And this is a book that I've been wanting to read, so I'm gonna give this one a try, and hopefully I enjoy it. So this will be the next book you get an update on.
Come outside. You're getting so brave. You can go explore. Stay out of the dirt. On Whispers of the Deep before I finish this book. I am about a little over 50% into this right now. This is kind of what I would call a monster sci-fi romance. It is about, I suppose, set in the future where humans are living in like glass and steel buildings in the ocean. Don't know why they're living in the ocean, but they are down there, and our main female character, Mira, she is an engineer, and she is supposed to be fixing this glass enclosure that had a crack in it or whatnot. So that's where the book starts. She's doing that. And when she's down there fixing it, she spots what they call an undine, which is a merman, and he starts to attack the building, the dome that she is trying to fix, and he breaks in, and the Undines are pretty much trying to take down the human cities under the water because they have pretty much destroyed the oceans with these constructions. So he manages to flood an area of this, put a lot of humans in harm's way, but in the process of that, he puts himself in harm's way because he is now out of the water and in air. So Mira comes along and she saves him, and he saves her a little bit. And eventually he spots her again, and he kidnaps her and takes her away because he feels like maybe he can learn something from her about how to take down the human civilization, or figure out why they're doing what they're doing in the ocean. But what he doesn't realize is that Mira really doesn't know much. She is just an engineer in this giant cog of a machine, and she pretty much just does her job. So they are traveling throughout the ocean. He's trying to keep her safe from his own species who's trying to kill her. And he's just taking her from cave to cave to cave, trying to keep her alive. She ends up finding this little android who becomes sort of her only friend within the ocean that is able to communicate with her. So this does have a language barrier element to it. They cannot understand each other. And it is a very slow building romance. I mean, I'm a little over 50%, and while they've had like touches and they're attracted to each other, they haven't acted on that yet. As much as I hate underwater creatures, okay, giant squid are like one of my biggest fear. Don't ask me why. It's highly unlikely that I will ever encounter a giant squid in my life, but that's why it's called an irrational fear. But those things freak me the fuck out. Whales freak me out. Giant underwater creatures freak me out. And thank God they're not like described too much in this story. We're mainly focusing on Argus, who is the Undine. But I feel like if I were Mira, which I am her when I'm reading this story, if I encountered one of those things, I would die immediately from a heart attack. It would scare me to death. I am also I'm like, how is this girl not like
how is her skin not slipped off her body from all the moisture? I mean, I know he's taking her to all these caves where there is some air, and so sometimes she's out of water, but for the most part the girl is in the water, and she does have this suit on that is supposed to like insulate her body from warmth and stuff. But I know what happens to people when their body is in the water. It just sloshes off of them, you know, because they get so moist. So I'm just like, okay, suspend disbelief and don't think about it too hard. But I am enjoying this. I probably will finish it relatively quickly. I really enjoyed this. I'm gonna end up giving it 4.5 stars, but some of the questions that I had as to like why this world is the way it is got explained in like the latter half of it, which I appreciated. I really liked the female main character in here. She's very smart. She is an engineer, and I liked her humor about the situation and her believability about certain situations she was put in. She didn't like just go with the flow and everything's hunky-dory. She questioned things. I really liked that Emma Hamm addressed some issues that you would have if you were in this situation. Like, she gets her period under the sea and she's like, what the fuck do I do about this? I liked that she addresses like how she's able to breathe under the water and how their species can interact with one another. She developed like some lore and back history for the situation that these two find themselves in. So I feel like she put a lot of thought into the scenario and the logistics of it. I liked the little tiny robot android that is pretty much her translator for them to communicate. I thought that was a cute little sort of like pet for her to have. The only thing I really didn't like about this book was I didn't feel a super strong connection to these characters. I didn't feel any sort of interest in the side characters. So by the time I finished the story, I was like, okay, that was a good enough story for what it was. But I don't see myself continuing with this series because I wasn't invested enough to care about the rest of the series. Another thing I didn't like was, once again, we just have this giant merman and this tiny little woman. Even though she is an engineer and she does have some survival skills and she's probably stronger than most just everyday women, because, you know, she's got to lug around welders and shit like that, she's still just described as this tiny little woman compared to him. And that's just a dynamic that I'm getting tired of seeing. And I know that that's prevalent in every monster romance you will see, because God forbid these authors take a shot and pair up a male with his own species of woman and give me a romance of that. God forbid. I still don't understand why authors are so incapable of giving me like a female of a different species with a male human. If this had a side character that was one of the female mermaids and she was interested in a male human, I would definitely continue on with this series, because that is a dynamic that I'm really interested in reading. Because the mer women in the society are said to be even larger than the men. They're very beautiful. They're very aggressive. So I think if this type of story could give me that dynamic where maybe the female, you know, embraces a softer side to mate with a human male, I would totally continue with this series. But no, we're just going to keep getting giant male mermaid with 2 dicks or really weird dicks and tiny little human women. And I just don't want to keep repeating that cycle. I will say he does have a double dick, which always makes for a fun scenario. But again, I feel like authors could just take a chance and give me a female with some unique anatomy. I'm always going to advocate for that. Just give me a female of a different species to, you know, fall for and to empathize with. That's all I want. That's where my discontent with a lot of monster alien romances coming in is, that I'm just getting the same shit over and over of giant man, tiny female woman. And until they can give me something else, then I'm not inclined to continue series, even though I liked a lot about this. I still am just
I'm still just feeling meh at the end of it because it's the same thing that I'm constantly given. So I think I am going to reap this from my collection, even though I gave it a 4.5 star. I enjoyed it. I did. Don't get me wrong. I would definitely recommend it, but I just don't see myself rereading this book. Okay, so now it is time to pick my next book, and instead of doing a random number generator, I am just going to pick a book that I got the hold from my library for, and that is The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. I really need to start reading the Fairy Loot selections that I'm getting in my YA box, and since my library hold came in for this, I am going to start reading this one and see how I feel about it. All I really know about this is it is like YA Bridgerton with Fae, so we will see how I get along with this, and I will give you an update later. I got 10% into this book, and I wasn't hating it. I was intrigued because I just kept picturing the main female character as Penelope Featherington because I like Bridgerton, and that's who I was picturing this as. So I was listening, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to actually read the synopsis of this. So I opened up the little flap here, and I actually read the synopsis, and I got to this very last paragraph, and it's a motherfucking love triangle. And that's where I decided to DNF this book. I hadn't even met a single love interest, but I am not reading a love triangle. I hate love triangles with a burning passion, okay? And I was really hoping that I would enjoy this story, okay? Because it probably has some really great plot to it or something, because I looked up the average star rating and it was like 4.1, which is pretty high. But no, I do not support this trope. I do not want to invest my time in this stupid trope. So I will be DNFing this. I will be reaping it from my collection, which is a crying fucking shame because, again, this is a Fairy Loot edition and it's very, well, the edges are kind of boring. But, like, the end papers, the under the naked, and I'm really freaking annoyed that I got a fucking love triangle. So disappointing there, but let's go ahead and pick a new book to read. That means I am up to 116 books now, so let me ask Alexa to pick me another book, and hopefully this is one that I can actually make progress in. Alexa, can you pick me a number between 1 and 116? 39, okay. So this is 30, so 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. This one says, read this book, and it is Iron Wolf by Siri Pedersen. This is a young adult, I believe, and quite honestly, this was a complete cover title buy. I liked the title Iron Wolf, and I kind of liked this cover. It didn't have people on it. It wasn't a cartoon. It looked very badass, if you ask me. There's no escape when the devil lives inside you. Sounds intriguing. It's a thick mofo, though. So I'm going to see if I can find an audiobook for this. Please, God, let there be an audiobook. If not, I'm going to be sitting down and reading this chunky bad boy, okay? This is a translated book, though, I think. Yeah, it's translated. I don't know what it's translated from. Maybe... I honestly don't know. I know nothing about this book. I bought it like a couple years ago based on the title and the cover. So, wish me luck. Hopefully it doesn't have a freaking love triangle. Let me give you an update on Iron Wolf here. I could not find an English audiobook for this. They only had German, and sadly my German is not up to par. So I'm having to read this physically. So I am right there. So not even halfway through yet. I'm at page 150. And this is what I thought was a YA fantasy, but I can confidently tell you that this is an adult fantasy, even though it was put in the YA section of Barnes & Noble. We're following a girl named Yuva, who is 19 years old, and she lives in this world where people use the blood of wolves for different reasons. Like, there's these gates that
people can travel through to get to different places in this world, and they're powered by wolf blood. There are these people called blood readers who not only use wolf blood, but they use like human blood as well to tell people like if there's bad things in their futures and things like that. They also use wolf blood for other things. And Yuva comes from a family of blood readers, but she wants absolutely nothing to do with this, so she has taken it upon herself to become a wolf hunter. So that's pretty much the setup of what I've gotten so far. I haven't really gotten to the point where I know what's really happening in this book. I know there's some secrets surrounding Yuva's family, and I think there may be like something happening with these gates that people use, like maybe the blood supply isn't working or something like that anymore. I'm really not sure. This is a fantasy that does not hold your hand and does not spoon feed you information. You sort of just have to go in it and figure it out along the way, because at 150 pages, I'm still figuring it out along the way. All I've really learned so far is what I've told you. But I'm not hating it. I'm not like super enjoying it either, because like I said, I don't know what the fuck's happening. I don't know where the plot of this story is going. And so I'm just along for the ride at this point. But I did want to bring up the fact that this is definitely not a YA story. Our main character is 19. All the other characters, with the exception of maybe one of her sisters, is older than that. They talk about things like fucking and sex and all the adult terms that one would use, like cock and pussy and things like that, are mentioned in this book, and I'm only 150 pages in. So I talked about this on my Instagram stories as to like why I think this would have been put in the YA section. It is a translated work, so maybe, I think it's translated from Norwegian because the author is from Norway. So maybe in Norway, the publisher who makes this, maybe this is the kind of thing that would fall in young adult. Maybe the young adults in Norway have a much stronger backbone and aren't as like sensitive to this kind of information as like, you know, teens in America would be. So I think maybe that's one reason why it could have been shelved in the YA section, is just because of the publisher and where it's translated from. The other thing I thought was because this is a female author and it's a fantasy, and I wouldn't even really say it strictly follows a female protagonist, because there are like a plethora of characters in this story that we follow from different point of views. But our main character is Yuva, who is a 19-year-old woman. So I think maybe that's why it's in the YA section, because, you know, it's a female author with a female protagonist. But no, this isn't any different, I would say. Well, like, granted, okay, don't take my word for this, because y'all know I don't read like epic fantasy shit, especially epic fantasy written by men. It's not my jam. So don't take my word when I say that this would be comparable to anything else in the fantasy section, but I strongly believe that it is. Like, there's not a whole lot of romance in this story. It's not spoon feeding me information. It seems like it's in a world that this author constructed very well, even though I don't know what the hell's happening. But I just don't see why this wouldn't be in the just fantasy section of Barnes & Noble as opposed to the YA section, because it's adult. I'm not going to say I'm not going to DNF it, because I got that much more. It's a little under 500 pages, so it's not like a terribly long book. It just looks like it. It looks like a chunky monkey. But, you know, who knows with me? I could DNF it at 50%. You really never know. But at this point, I'm not hating it. I'm not like super obsessed with it. It's just fine. Got my free cone.
How we doing over here? Good? Yeah, I can't control it.
Are you enjoying your free cone? The line at Dairy Queen today is insane. It's all the way back here, and we're in the back of the store.
That's the inside line.
That's the inside line.
mine is left around the car. That's what happens when it's free cone day. But Dairy Queen is seriously an underrated fast food.
Hello, it has been a good week since I last gave you an update, but I'm still reading Iron Wolf. I haven't given up on it yet. I am now about 300 pages in, and I finally have an idea of what's going on in this world. So, these blood readers that I was telling you about, they are completely bullshit. Nobody really has the power of reading blood and telling people their future or whatnot. They just pretend they do. Except for our main girl, Yuva, who finds out that she actually does have this gift. And she learns this because her entire family is murdered. Most of the entire blood reader guild, I guess, is murdered. And she finds out that they've been keeping a secret, and her mother was harboring this Iron Wolf. It's this man so in this world, when people get bitten by wolf, they get what they call wolf sickness, and it turns them feral and into wolves, and they kill people. So they have people who kill people who contract this disease. But her mother was hiding this man who she thought was a wolf in an iron cage when she was a child, and her mother just told her, no, the devil is in you, child. It's you. Stop talking about it or whatnot, because her mother didn't want her to tell people that she was harboring this guy. But she just found him after her entire family was murdered, and he was kept in this iron cage in a secret chamber in a basement in their house or whatnot. And he is telling her that he is this ancient being. He came through one of the gates that I had mentioned earlier that the wolf blood powers, but nobody knows that the gate that he came through actually transports them to a different world, because there are guards around this and nobody else has attempted to go through it or whatnot. And so he's asking her to set him free so that he can go back to his world before this group of people called the Verdari, I think, before they find him and kill him. Because he knows that this group of people called the Verdari they're somewhat immortal. They live really long lives. And they know that if people knew that he existed, that he is the key to actual blood readers being in existence. And the Verdari don't want this. They don't want people to actually have the ability to be actual blood readers. And she's trying to figure out what to do. Should she set him free? Will he cause more chaos or anything like that? And now that she is actually a blood reader, should she attempt to gather all the other supposed blood readers to fight the Verdari, is what I'm getting. It's hella fucking confusing when I'm trying to tell you what it's about, isn't it? You're probably like, what the fuck? No, that makes sense. Anyway, I got that far. I somewhat know what the plot of the story is now. And I'm still I'm not loving it, but I'm not hating it. And I don't see myself DNFing it at this point. So I'm actually on reading sprints with Jackie and Kristen while they are buddy reading a different book. So it's giving me motivation to get this one read. I did it! I finished Iron Wolf by Siri Pedersen, and I decided to give this 3.5 stars. So this was a really unique fantasy. It wasn't anything like I have read before, so it kept my attention for that. I really liked the found family in here, and I liked that this is a fantasy that does not give you info dump world building. You were thrown into this world and you really don't know who any of these people are. You don't know what a Verdari is. You don't know what a blood reader is. You don't know why they need this blood. You read and you find out as you go along. And while I liked that, that could also be a drawback, because it took me about 300 pages into this book to really understand the whole economic system of what was going on here. I did like the characters. I thought our main character, Yuva, she was feisty and she was smart in some aspects, but in other aspects she was very naive to what was going on in her own world, because she didn't want to know what was going on in her world and she wanted no part of her blood reader heritage. But I liked seeing her figure things out as well.
I also liked that I didn't ever really know like who to trust within this book. At the end of the book, I still don't know who to trust within this book, quite honestly. But I wasn't ever like really engrossed in this story. I was Yuva. I was able to become a character in this, so I was her. But I didn't have a strong connection to any of these characters. If they lived, if they died, I really didn't care. And because it took me so long to really understand what was going on in this world, that was what kept me reading more so than the enjoyment of what was happening. So I do still maintain that this is not a YA fantasy, this is an adult fantasy. But I am going to give it 3.5 stars because I do think it genuinely did something different for me. It stood out. Now, will I continue on with this? I don't know. I am going to keep this book for a while though, because there was something about it that genuinely appealed to me, and I am curious. There is this slight sexual tension between Yuva and one of the other characters in this book that I wonder if in the next book a relationship would develop between them, if they are able to be on page more together. But for the most part, this has no romance in it. And it's that slight what if that keeps me wanting to hold on to this book. I feel like this is a book that as I get older, I would enjoy more. I think if I had read this book when I was younger, I wouldn't have enjoyed it at all. So I'm not going to reap this one. I'm going to hang on to it for a little bit. If there comes a time when I come across the book, the sequel in a bookstore or something like that, I may pick it up. I'll put it on Wishlist. If somebody gets it for me, great. If the audiobooks ever come out in English, I would definitely read the second book on audiobook. So I'm not ready to say goodbye to this yet. So we're going to hang on to it. That is going to be the end of episode 3 of Read or Reap. It's getting toward the end of the month. I need to get this edited and uploaded. But let me go through really quick and just give you a rundown of the things that I tried to read and or DNF'd within this episode. So I did read Raising the Horseman, which I gave 1.5 stars. No surprise this is being reaped. This was a horrible book. I read A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, which I actually ended up enjoying. This got 4 stars for me, and I will be keeping this one. I DNF'd The First Bright Thing, and this will be reaped from my collection. I read A Broken Blade, and I gave this 2.5 stars, and I will be reaping this from my collection. I read Whispers of the Deep, which I actually really enjoyed. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars, but I do think I'm going to reap this because I just don't see myself ever rereading it. Which doesn't make a lot of sense because I ended up giving Iron Wolf 3.5 stars, but I am going to keep this one because I think I might actually reread this, despite the fact that it got a lower rating than Whispers of the Deep. Something about this just makes me think I will continue with the series or enjoy reading this later in life as opposed to the other one. And I DNF'd The Rose Bargain, which I will be reaping from my collection. On top of that, I did get one other book off the shelf that wasn't part of this Read or Reap vlog, and that was Bloodguard, and I did read this, and you will get my thoughts on that in my wrap-up. So at the end of episode 3, I am down to 115 books on my shelf, so I made quite a lot of progress in this episode, and you will notice that 2 whole shelves are cleared off. We are now down to 4 shelves of books, which if you pay attention to the intros of these videos, I say the goal is to ultimately try and get down to 3 shelves at minimum. I'm 1 shelf away. So I am pretty happy with the results of this episode. I had ratings all over the place, but I did have some winners out of the books that I chose this month. So yay for that. And here is a visual representation of all of the books that I got off the shelf this episode. Let me know down in the comments, have you read any of these books or any of them on your TBR? Or give me a guess of how many books you think will be on this shelf at the end of episode 4. If we're at 115 right now, how many do you think I will get down to at the end of episode 4? But if you don't want to comment that but would like to let me know that you made it to the end of this video, could you leave me a tooth emoji? Because those were on the cover of Iron Wolf. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and until my next video, here's to hoping that you got some books cleared off of your TBR shelf this month as well. Bye!